Welcome to Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. आप सबनों प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. Well, we are at the end of the year, and first of all, happy holidays to everybody. Even though we are in the midst of this war, which is actually knocking on the door to become a world war. Again, then world war, some people, they don't believe that there was a world war at all, because they said every country was not involved in the war. And I have one of the guests today who is going to also debate like that, keeping the certain things out. Oh, if that was not there, then how you can say it, But yes, we have a lot of things before the end of the year to talk about. But main points which I'm going to talk right now is we definitely will talk about the Middle East, but a few things to look forward to. 2024 is coming. There are going to be elections in a couple of places throughout the world. I think in England also it is either 24 or 25. India definitely will have elections. And US definitely will have election. And we will see there is probably a rematch between the former president, who is current president, who may be the next president, Donald Trump, who never admitted that he lost the election. That's his pedigree. He doesn't believe in admitting that he lost. And the current sitting president of US, Joe Biden. And as I have discussed, and I always talk about, everybody has their own opinion. And yeah, my honest opinion, for me, Joe Biden has done few things which people still don't realize, and they will know about it once down the road, that what actually he did for the people who really were not included in the revolution or evolution of American politics since Ronald Reagan. That trickle-down economy, a lot of this goes on. So we will see how it goes in 2024. But in 2023, we have Rudy Giuliani going down. We have Trump already got arrested. We have a lot of other people, including Mark Meadows. We don't know what he said and what he didn't say, but we will see. But one thing is definite, that he will have to face the music in Georgia state. So this is something which we need to understand about few things in this country. Law is always slow to catch up, but it definitely catches up. Okay, that's the beauty of American democracy. And if it survives, in case Trump comes in, we don't know. Those are all permutation and combination. We will see how it happens, how it comes. But yes, we just had Hanukkah finished, right?
I'm sorry?
It's over? Hanukkah is over?
Yes.
Yeah. So happy Hanukkah also. Happy Kwanzaa, happy Christmas. New Year is around the corner. So let me introduce you to the guest who is new but not new, and who just confirmed that yes, Hanukkah is over. Let me welcome him. Thanks for coming in, Charlie.
Thank you for having me, Harpreet.
Okay, so let us first talk about, you heard me what I just said about elections and Trump.
Yes.
The former president, sitting president, and incoming president,
Right.
Because based on his theory, right? Okay. So this Colorado ruling, okay, what happened over there, that they disqualified him. Okay. I personally, yeah, that's fine, but I personally wanted to see him actually getting dribbled, badly losing again in 2024 at the ballot.
I think that will still happen.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if the Colorado decision will hold up because of the United States Supreme Court.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the political atmosphere that we have, you have what the legal determination is, which is Colorado's Supreme Court is correct. In our Constitution, you are disqualified if you are an insurrectionist,
which he was,
and or give aid and comfort to an insurrectionist, which he has been.
He
Right.
did both.
And the courts have found him guilty of that. But then you have the political side, where people are going to be dissatisfied and are trying to promulgate, or promote violence right now, and they think that they will be able to get away with it.
Getting pardoned and everything if he comes in, right?
Right, but I also think that there has been a lot of right-wing political violence that have happened over the last 50 years or so, and people have never been punished, really. And
it has been that long that right-wing people are not getting punished?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in my memory, during the Vietnam War in 1970, there was a major riot by the construction workers and the construction unions against anti-Vietnam War demonstrators in Manhattan.
That is, we're talking about when there were constant, demonstrations to bring the soldiers home from Vietnam.
And this particular demonstration was about the expansion of the war into Cambodia in the spring of 1970 when Richard
Which
Nixon,
was Kissinger's plan. We need to talk about that. Thanks for bringing me up. That was Henry Kissinger. He was the one who did it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
that is something which, I'm sorry folks, I missed that. I should have talked about it also, because that's a very interesting
But what happened then is that the construction workers, they beat the crap out of the demonstrators, and nothing was done. And actually, the labor leaders were given, the main one, I'm forgetting his name, but Richard Nixon complimented for being a patriot, and made him the Secretary of Labor. So that behavior has been rewarded for 50 years. And my opinion is that that was the beginning of all the right-wing people calling themselves patriots. And that was when they were appropriating the flag and saying it was you can only think of it as one way. So anyway, getting back to the Colorado decision, it was, you see that people are trying to influence politics.
There is something I want to add to the white supremacist and everything. I'm just going to mention the first name of the gentleman, Tom, Caucasian, who used to live in New York City. He's not in New York City anymore. We used to work together. And, a very close friend of mine, and his birthday is also coming up in January. And, there was one thing which he said at that time when we were together in mid-80s to, I think he retired in 89 or something like that. He said one thing to me. He said, you know what, Harpreet, all these white people, he himself being white, okay, and his wife was Jewish, okay, and he said, all these white peoples, if you ask them that, okay, if there is an attack on America, on American soil, would you pick up the arms and go and fight? And he said, they will not do it, but you will do it.
Right.
These people who are actually here making all these noises, the more I look at them, the more I feel like that he was so right, that these people actually are the people who just make the noise because they can make it and they can get away with it.
Right. They act arrogantly and with impunity.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that there have never been any consequences for their behavior. And until now, when you have the January 6th trials happening, that people are actually being sent to jail over their actions.
That also thanks to January 6th Commission from House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, when she put it up. Otherwise, there may not be, because knowing Joe Biden, again, you can comment after I say what I'm going to say. Knowing Joe Biden, I think he was like, let the bygones be bygone, move on.
No, not at all. I'll tell you what the facts that I know. I mean, I'd be wrong, but
we both could be wrong.
Yeah, but when Joe Biden was inaugurated, he nominated Merrick Garland to be the Attorney General. The Republicans were arguing over who controls the Senate for confirmation. Remember, it was 50-50. It took them 2 months to establish the rules. So Merrick Garland didn't even come into office until March of 2021. Okay, and during those 2 months, you still had Trump holdovers in political positions in the Department of Justice dragging their feet and trying to muddy the waters. And so there were no investigations hard and fast going on then. And they were trying, and actually, and then, you had Merrick Garland's assistant not being put into office until April, 3 months after. And then the person in charge of the Washington, D.C. office wasn't put in until like October or November.
Yeah, so they were dragging that. Yeah,
and that's got nothing to do with Biden. Okay, so Biden wasn't saying anything about it.
I didn't look from that perspective that, to muddy the water, because right now what they are saying, I saw the other day a tweet, somebody tweeted, that Trump did say, ask the people to go home peacefully, and I was like, you must be kidding, man. What do you think, we are all idiots? Because Trump did say, ask the people to go home, but it was only after they had achieved what he wanted to achieve, which he never got achieved anyway.
Right. Yeah, exactly, because he was watching the events and rewinding them over and over again until he was forced to do it by the people, because they realized that if it carried on, it would look even worse for them.
There probably would have been more deaths within the Capitol building.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But but he realized that that tactic that he pulled, which was the last thing he was capable of doing, wasn't going to succeed, and that's when he realized that he better try to make it reflect better on himself by telling people to go home.
Maybe he was. One of his advisors told him that, okay, you're not succeeding, do that, because down the road when the things come to, wherever they are now, that it may help you just to go in the election.
I don't think they were thinking that far ahead. I think they were planning all along.
If they can think of what they will do on January 6th, which they were already talking about for months.
Yeah.
So for me, I think he has all these advisors who are capable of thinking and doing anything.
Well, fortunately, they're not very competent. I mean, they try to create a massive conspiracy, and it didn't really well, we'll see. It doesn't appear to be holding up, because there are people who are starting to, turn state's evidence and give up.
That some of the people are playing in the back since years, including the Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. But that is something, one of his previous judgment I was reading about, he mentioned something about where if he sticks to that, then he will have to go against Donald Trump. There was something, where about resurrection and everything. And in one of his previous judgments, when he was judge somewhere before he got appointed to Supreme Court, right?
Right.
He gave some, when they write the judgment, in that he included a few things which actually are going to, if he sticks to that, they are definitely going to go against Trump.
Oh yeah, and also the same thing in the Colorado, going back to the Colorado decision, they quoted, I'm trying to remember the Supreme Court Justice, I'm blanking on his name for a moment. not Kavanaugh, the other justice that Trump appointed. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name.
No, I know. He appointed, what's his name? Damn, now you blanked me out too.
But they quoted his decision in Colorado about having to follow what the letter of the law is. You know, and I think the Supreme Court of Colorado was kind of tweaking him, saying, "Well, let's see what your decision is going to be. You know, based on what you've said before. Are you going to still uphold what you've said previously?"
Yeah. 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 Okay. Now moving on to a little bit about 2024. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Republicans. Nikki Haley, what do you think about it?
I mean, I'm a Democrat, so I'm not.
No, I know you are a Democrat, but I'm like, you know, probably if you read something about it, she actually is. She happens to belong to a Sikh family. Okay, and her brother, her father, mother, they are still practicing Sikhs. Okay, with the beard and turban and everything. You're, you know, just like me.
Okay? I'm not very impressed with her.
And there are people who are already saying that she's not even using her original name. You know, so I can understand that. Okay, this is in politics. You know, this is what they will start doing on it. I'm not a fan of her either.
Well, I haven't followed her closely, but the policies that she's been espousing that have is about women's health. And
she's playing the middle game. She's like
she's not even in the middle. She's in the middle of whatever Trump says.
Yeah, 15-week. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that woman in Texas who's having that problem with her pregnancy, and I mean the way it's set up in Texas and all these other states that have limited access to health care, is that, you know, a woman could be way past their deadline, their arbitrary deadline, and it's a question of whether it's their health or not, and there's no leeway there.
No, for me, see, that is something which has always bothered me in this country since I came here since 1983. There are things which I really learned here, which I really respect, which is, you know, the freedom of speech, how it is there. Till we don't know what would happen, God forbid, if Trump comes in back again, you know, and freedom of expression and stuff like that. But at the same time, they are chipping away at the freedom, starting with Ronald Reagan, one after another.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If you really compare it, we don't have same kind of freedom which we had till Reagan came on board. Okay. Now the question comes in, why, I don't know even if you can answer that or not, that why they still want to keep the women under their thumb, the males, with all due respect to your better half.
I couldn't answer
I know.
that.
I don't want you to get in trouble. She's sitting right there watching you, you know.
No, I mean, I have no idea.
No, it baffles me, and I'm asking you because you grew up here, and maybe you may have something to teach me something.
But I didn't grow up with people with that opinion of trying to control people. And I think it's more of, I think
New York City is a different animal then, right?
That's true, but I would take a more cynical approach that the origin of evangelicals supporting banning abortion or taking an anti-women's health is a part of a bargain that they made with, they were starting to get politicized in the late 70s, and they wanted to merge. There were some of the more intellectual people behind their movement were determined to create an atmosphere where they would be able to merge and have a coalition of the evangelicals supporting Republicans. And there was a guy named Paul Weyrich who had the moral majority, and he organized a lot of the ministers to be anti-abortion. And it was a fundraising tactic, it was an organizing tactic to get people to support it, and people bought into it. And at the same time, you had Ronald Reagan ascension in 1980, and it also coincided with right-wing attacks on the media, where they became more compliant to not to push back, and wanted to make sure that they weren't being labeled as liberal and had a certain opinion and a bias. So they became, I guess they evolved into the both sides say it, you know, one Republicans say one thing and the Democrats say another, and there's no context in any of it. And that's kind of my memory of the history since 1980, which was percolating in the mid-70s as well. And you know, and because of
so the foundation was being laid out before that.
Absolutely,
and then
there was actually a plan put in place called the Powell Memo. Lewis Powell, who ultimately became a Supreme Court justice appointed by Richard Nixon, and he put out a memo to the Chamber of Commerce in, I think, 1971, because there were a lot of people who were afraid that the fabric of the United States was falling apart and was going to become socialist. And so they tried to structure the institutions that we have, education, media, political educations, the judicial system, and make it almost to what we have right now. So this has been planned.
Of course,
not exactly everything according to a plan. It's not like, but basically the direction of the Republican Party was laid, the groundwork was laid there, and they basically have followed that blueprint for the last 45, 50 years.
You know, and interestingly, you know, when you look at even now I'm looking at it, Republicans, they always pretended, if I may use that term and the word, that they are the foreign policy hawks and this and that. And look at that. They don't care about what happens in the rest of the world and how America interacts with the rest of the world. And they are actually like, you know, withdraw from everything and just close everything and stay within U.S. And that is exactly what Trump is trying to do.
Right. Well, I look at the two parties as two different brands, and the Republicans have been living off of their brand equity of who they think they are and what they portray, and they're not who they are. They try to convince people. They try to convince people that they are a party that they were maybe 40 years ago, but that's not who they are, and they don't have the intellectual firepower that they had 40 years ago or 45 years ago. So all you have now are people who are living off of what was said back then, and you know, that's guiding them. And there's very little variation. I mean, if you really dig down and look at all their tactics, they haven't changed anything. They've done the exact same thing for the last 40, 45 years.
You know, there is, for me also, you know, let's leave out the far extreme lefts and rights, okay? Even in the middle, the people who are in the middle in both the parties, they are not even talking to each other anymore. It was not like that. At least when I came here, it was not like that. You know, there were few things which, even when Ronald Reagan was the president, and Tip O'Neill was the speaker at that time, right?
Right.
There were a few things which Tip O'Neill got done.
Yeah, because at the time, it was all just evolving. Nobody was aware that there was an undercurrent of things that was directing some of the policies. You know, yes, there. When Reagan came in, there was very high inflation, and also, you know, there was oil shock and other things that were going on, and there was the Iranians are holding, I think it was 50 U.S. State Department people as hostages.
Yeah, they had those, but then again, Reagan played a role in that. Also, Republicans not to let them get released till the elections, and after the election, they didn't want them to come home till Jimmy Carter is gone. Right. So with that, let's take a break.
But also, Jimmy Carter absorbed a lot of the negative stuff that was unjustified, and especially economically, where he put in Volcker as the Fed chairman, and he was the one that put interest rates very, very high and wrung out inflation. But Reagan was the beneficiary.
So it always happens.
It appeared that his tax cuts were the cause of the inflation coming down, but that really wasn't the case, because he wound up raising taxes over his time period. But the mythology of tax cuts creating wealth is, it really creates wealth for a few people, not wealth for everybody.
Before we go into the Middle East, what is happening there, which is very important, I want to have the conversation about for the viewers as well as for myself also. I know a little bit of history, but not exactly everything. Before we go there, your predictions for 2024, something.
My prediction?
Yeah.
Well,
next year we will come back in December of 2024 and we'll talk about it. What you said and what happened, what did not happen.
Well, it seems like it's going to be close in different places. I think the Democrats will prevail. I think it's going to be bumpy, because the media is going to try and promote the Republicans in order to have the fight. Also, some of it may be
to have their cash registers running.
What was that?
To have their cash registers running, the media.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that some of it will not be intellectually honest. They will promote certain things just to create the fight, as opposed to having a context, and saying, listen, this is what is happening, and they'll report what the fight is as opposed to what the issues are. The other part of it is you have people who are trying to promote third-party candidates, which is a very false narrative, and they're doing it for their own, either for financial reasons or because they really want to, they're afraid that the Democrats will win if it's a Republican versus Democratic election, and that and they promote the idea that, well, if you're dissatisfied with the choices, there's always a third-party choice. But it's not a real choice, because our system works, which is 50% plus 1. And it really comes down to a binary choice. It's only going to be A or B, not C, D, or E. Because even if C, D, or E would win, how are they going to organize a government? They have nobody to support them.
We will. there is something which that's good that you talked about it. Probably in February, if not in January.
February is this special election of District 3.
No, I'm going to. That's on February 13th. Yeah, I'm involved in that one also. I got tapped in. Anyway, we'll talk about that later on. But I want to do something after February 13. Two things. One, of course, we'll discuss February 13. Number two, if God forbid in one or two states, those third-party candidate ends up winning and state's law is winner takes all, and they have few of those
For the
delegates
primary?
for the primary.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and in November election.
General, okay.
Okay, and if they win one or two states and they have delegates, how then those delegates will end up pushing the person beyond 370 if none of the A or B candidate have 370? We will talk about that. Not now. Not now. Not now. I'm just giving you a heads up so that you can be ready for that. Okay.
It's a scam.
Whatever it is, we will talk about it. So let's talk about Middle East. Okay. We are looking at the reality, no doubt about it. What Hamas did, it was horrible, horrible, horrible. But what Bibi is doing is nothing less than that either. Okay, I need to understand, why there is so much going on, but still somehow there is not that much sympathy for a regular people who lives in Gaza, who had nothing to do with either of the wars, and they just want to live there and have their life and have their family grow up like everybody else, that okay, I want my son to succeed, Why there is so much disconnect? That is something I'm trying to understand from devastation.
Which part of the disconnect?
The Gazan destruction, because Bibi is, correct me if I'm wrong, in West Bank, he was already pushing the Jewish settlement to negate the two-nation theory.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Okay. That's my understanding also. Okay. Now, I think one of the Hamas action, whatever that attack was, even though it was in planning, it could have been the reason that they somehow felt that we will not have any place at all in coming 20 years or 40 years or 50 years, and maybe that was the big
part. That part I don't disagree, because I don't agree with, because in Hamas's charter was the idea of the destruction of Israel.
That is true.
Okay?
That is true. Yeah.
So their motivation had nothing to do with their fear of not having a land or that they were going to be pushed out.
Okay.
Because in actuality, they've been in control. Hamas has been in control of Gaza since 2006, maybe 2005, when the election was. And Israel has not been in there. Okay, yes, there was, I believe, that there was a military action that took place in like 2014 or 2015.
Something like that.
That created the ceasefire that Hamas broke on October 7th. I only know Israeli politics cursorily. I mean, they're a democracy, but they're different from our democracy. And
India also have democracy.
What?
India also has democratic setup.
Right. but
you know what I'm saying,
Oh,
yeah.
But they have many political parties, and they are apportioned proportionally based on the vote. Okay, which when you come back in February, you can see some of the pitfalls of that. So Bibi Netanyahu's playing politically with some of his decisions, which is unfortunate because you can't trust him. Being Jewish, I'm not happy that he is representing me de facto. I don't have a choice. I'm an American citizen. I don't vote in Israel. But whatever Israel does comes back to reflect on me being Jewish. I think part of the issue is the tragedies on both sides and the humanity on both sides, but the problem that I see from being Jewish is that the way it's being portrayed is that it's still very one-sided, because people talk about the destruction in Hamas and all the lives being lost. But there's never saying, and the political thrust is to get Israel to stop its military action. But on the other hand, you never hear them saying, release the hostages.
See,
you don't, you hear, that's absent. It's absent. So to me,
this is why I wanted.
There's two existential crises.
Yeah,
there's the Palestinian that is being manipulated by Hamas, and the Jewish existential crisis, which affects Jews globally. But you only hear the portrayal as being make Israel stop the killing in Gaza, which is true, it has to. But they don't talk about releasing the hostages, saying, where's the pressure on Hamas to release the hostages? It's been only about having a ceasefire, which is, in a sense, Hamas, from what I've read, is Hamas will take that as a success and winning the war.
Yeah. So
how can you reward somebody who has been barbaric?
Let us take a break. After the break, we are going to be right back. We need to take that, because this is one of the reasons why I wanted him to come today, because him being one of the family who got uprooted in Germany first, right?
No, not my family.
But,
I have family that were in Europe and got out. But my personal family was here before World War II.
Okay. So. Donald Trump's killing Soleimani, who was actually the head of Iranian forces, and Iran being close to Russia, okay, that how that killing at that time could be playing a role now, because Iran directly cannot do anything to Israel or US, but they definitely, like every other, country, when they can't fight directly, they always find the means. So you heard me, so go ahead. Oh. Which I'm talking about, the Soleimani who was...
I did. I was trying to... I forgot about that part. But
I'm not going to let you forget about anything.
No, it's fine. I'm not a Middle East expert. Or a foreign affairs expert. I read the newspapers, I read the New York Times and other sources. But what seems very clear to me is that you have, why did Hamas attack when it did, in the method that it did? Because it's been planning it for a long time. It just coincides at the same time that Russia is having a bad time in the Ukraine. And Iran and Russia are linked together. Iran is supplying drones to Russia with the purpose of overtaking the Ukraine. And so...
Interestingly, for Russia, Ukraine does not exist.
Right.
Yeah, for them, Ukraine is, no, that's not a country, that's Russia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so then you have Hamas attacking Israel at that time. It also breaks up negotiations that were happening between Saudi Arabia and Israel, which would have connected India, possibly connected India to the Middle East and Europe. And that affects China, and China is supporting Russia as well. So there seems to be maybe Russia and China trying to keep their hands clean, and then creating dissension by using their proxy of Hamas in order to terrorize the Israelis, and knowing that they would provoke a reaction the way they did with from Israel. And Israel being led by Bibi Netanyahu, they knew, and they can expect an overreaction because he knows that he's at fault for putting Israel in that vulnerable situation that permitted.
Not only that, but also on top of other thing also, that he knows that if he's not a prime minister, he may end up behind the bars.
Pretty quickly, yes.
You know, that's another factor, and that could be the factor also that, you know, he was trying to, you know, change the rules and regulations and the Supreme Court over there, which is very independent of the government, to bring it under control. So for me, I'm going to go back a little bit on this thing. You know, when we were talking about that, there are things which I learned, the freedom of speech. I was looking at it, those people who actually demonstrated when he was speaking and he talked about it, you know. And also, I still remember, you know, we had a Sikh Day parade, and the mayor at that time, Bill de Blasio, he was speaking from the dais on the parade, and right, I would say about 50 feet away from the dais, there was a guy, a Sikh gentleman, I will still call him a gentleman, with something written on, you know, the cardboard, and he was yelling at the mayor. And one of our organizers went up to the cop and he said, "Why can't you stop him?" And he said, "Well, he has the freedom of speech. I cannot stop him." You know, so when you look at that, so that's why I'm saying, you know, those are the things which I value so much. You know, again, going back to where we were, like, you know, Russia and Silk Road from China, this new agreement. So what do you expect where it will end up in the Middle East?
I don't know.
I know you don't, but again,
you know, because
if, for me, if somebody asks me, you know, when India and Pakistan was created, right? Okay, Pakistan was carved out of India. Okay, only 2 states were divided between India and Pakistan. One was Punjab, the other one was Bengal. Okay, and there was the Indian National Army, which was created by a Sikh gentleman, and then who was Punjabi, and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who was Bengali. Both of them, they actually created this whole army who was fighting against the Britishers. So Britishers decided to do what? Divide Punjab and Bengal. Divide them.
Right.
Okay. So with Netanyahu bent on killing permanently this idea of Palestinian state,
right,
to exist along with Israel,
right,
okay, do you think that he may have ultimately to admit that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
He may have to ultimately admit that only 2 states is the solution. What he's trying to do, take over the West Bank, may not be the solution.
You know,
I know you are not expert, but
no,
I'm trying to understand as much as
I mean, in a way, I hope that they can divide and establish a secure zone for the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza.
You have 1 minute.
Okay. But it's, you know, obviously, you know, you need to negotiate with 2 sides that are want to negotiate, or they become so exhausted that they have to negotiate, which is what happened in Ireland. And they got the peace agreement that, you know, that stopped the troubles.
Yeah, it took years, but now look at, you know, the benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing I would hope would happen between Gaza and, you know, and between Hamas and Israel. But Hamas is not the entity that they want to negotiate with. They have to be another entity to help the Palestinian people who reside in Gaza and also in the West Bank, okay? But as long as Hamas has the appearance of being the organized political structure, there won't be any peace, because, you know, that's like saying, you know, for the United States to negotiate
we have 10 seconds.
with Osama bin Laden.
Okay. Well, you know, we are actually running out of time. See, there's something which I want to say here. You know, it's very painful when you talk about it. And I have met the people, I have seen the people. That's the reason why I mentioned about the division between India and Pakistan. And so when you talk to those people and you see that their face expression, you can understand that how you can get lost in these big power struggles about who should be on the top. And that's why, you know, I really have to appreciate him coming in today and talking about this as much freely as he can here. And I hope he does not get in trouble because of what we could discuss here. But, you know, we got to understand one thing, you know, unless and until we have somebody, which I always say, a person who happens to be a statesman and looks at the things from above, not from the ground, we will not really have long-term solutions. And that is something which I'm hoping that if Joe Biden comes back again, which I'm assuming he will, but then I don't know yet, but if he comes back again, he is the only person right now which I can see that he has that vision where he can set up some sort of commission in bringing in Qatar, Egypt, and Palestinians and Israelis together to run that part and come up with some sort of two-state solution to have this some sort of permanent solution if there is any solution. But we don't know. Like he said, I'm also saying I don't know. But till next time, good night and good luck.